Good afternoon, students. Today, in the Indian Economy subject, we are going to learn factors responsible for environmental pollution. The world is facing many problems at modern era. Environment pollution is one of the most important problem in our world. India is not exception. It has also many problems. Environment pollution is one of them. Every problem has its factors. So, environment pollution has also many factors by which increased environment pollution. We mentioned in details about factors responsible for environment pollution in this lecture. Or we will learn these things in the lecture. The factors responsible for environment pollution. As we know that one of the major threat that our environment is facing today is environment pollution. It is increasing with every passing year. It is causing grave and irreparable damage to the atmosphere. The mechanization of the society, the urbanization, introduction of motorized vehicle, and the exploitation of the human population have caused an exponential growth in the increase of waste byproducts. Now we can say that the indiscriminate discharge of untreated industrial and domestic waste into waterways, the throwaway attitude towards thousands of bones of solid resulted in major environment disasters. First of all, we should know about environment pollution. What is environment pollution? According to the Environmental Protection Act 1986, environmental pollution means the presence in the environment of any environment pollutant. Environmental pollutant means any solid, liquid, or gaseous substances present in such concentration as may be or tend to be injurious to the environment. So we can say that environment pollution is a term that refers to all the ways by which people pollute their surroundings. People dirty the air with gases and smoke, poisons the water with chemical and other substances, and damage the soil with too many fertilizers and pesticides. It is one of the most serious problems of the humanity. It's the most serious problems the humanity is facing today. The expression pollutes means to get spoiled or to make unclear or impure of unhealthy. The word pollution is derived from the Latin word pollutus, which means defined or to make dirty or to pollute. The expression pollution denotes the presence of wrong matter in wrong quantity at a wrong place. It refers to a process by which a resources, material, or man-made is rendered unfit for some beneficial use due to some physical, chemical, or biological factors. Pollution means the direct or indirect discharge by man or substances or energy into aquatic environment resulting in hazard to human health. Harm is living resources and aquatic ecosystem, damage to amenities or interference with other legitimate uses of water. In other words, you can say that pollution is a civil wrong, but it's very native, it's a tort committed against the community as a whole. A person, therefore, who is guilty of causing pollution has to compensate for the damages for the desortation of environment and ecology. Thus, we can define to pollution according to above given or this definitions that pollution is the affection, undesirable changes in our surrounding that have harmful effect on plants, animals, and human beings. This occurs when only short-term economic gain are made at the cost of long-term ecological benefits for humanity. No phenomenon has led to greater ecological change than has been made by mankind. During the last few decades, we have we have contaminated our air, water, and land, or which life itself depends with a variety of waste product. If you say factors responsible for this environmental pollution, so these are natural factors and man-made factors. Factors of pollution and environmental degradation are of two kinds: natural factor as well as man made factor. Natural factors, if we talk about the natural factors, factors which are responsible by nature is called natural factor, as food, cyclone, earthquake, the word as I can say that cyclone, flood, cyclone, earthquake, drought, molten lava of volcano, twister, torrents, epidemic are the main natural factors which factors environmental pollution since they are agent of nature and man has no control over them. They are known as natural factor. The other is man-made factor. Pollution which made by human being is called man-made factors such as poverty growth, deforestation, agricultural development, industrial development, urbanization, modern productive technologies. Environmental pollution is a term that refers to all the way by which people pollute their surroundings. People dirty the air with gases and smoke, poison the water with chemical and other substances, and damage the soil with too many fertilizers and pesticides. It is one of the most serious problems the humanity is facing today. Now, if we talk about the factors of environmental problem, the main factor behind the environmental problems uh, are, we can say that poverty, deforestation, agriculture development, population growth, industrial development, urbanization. So the environmental crisis caused due to environment and ecological changes, which is a result of development process of the present century. In fact, if the present century is marked by socio-economic, scientific, and technological development on the one hand, it is plagued by serious problems of environmental problem on the other hand. The environmental crisis arising out of the environmental deterioration caused by several forms of pollution and the natural resources because of rapid rate of their exploitation and increasing dependency on energy consuming and ecological damaging the technologies. The loss of habits due to industrial, urban, and agriculture expansion, reduction and loss of ecological population due to excessive use of toxic pesticides and uh, loss of several species of plants due to practice of monoculture and removal of habits through forest clearance has now become of global concern. The life of common man is being so rapidly adversely affected by environmental degradation caused by man itself that there has been a marked growth of interest within the last decade in the quality of the environment. The disruption of the Earth's natural ecosystem and the depletion of resources. The most striking reason of the environmental degradation and hence global environmental crisis is the fact deteriorating relationship between man-made environmental because of the rapid rate of exploitation of natural resources, technological development, and industrial expansion. The rate of environmental changes and resultant environmental degradation caused by human activities has been so fast and widespread. This impact of man on environment through his economic activities are varied and highly complex as the transformation or modification of one natural condition and process leads to a series of change in the biotic and biotic component of the environment. The impacts of man on environmental falls into two categories actually: direct or internal impact, indirect impacts. So we can say that the impacts of uh, man on environment falls into two categories. One is direct impact and other is indirect impacts. Direct impacts of humans activities are pre-planned and uh, premeditated because man is aware of the consequence, both positive and negative, of any program which is launched to change or modify the natural environment for economic development of the region concerned. The effects of anthropogenic changes in the environments are noticeable within short period, and these effects are reversible because both before and after studies of possible effects may enable the man to set the negative defects right to a certain extent if so desired and intent. On the other hand, the indirect impact of human activities on the environment are not premeditated and pre-planned. And these impacts arise from those human activities which are directed to accelerate the pace of economic growth, especially industrial development. The indirect impacts are experienced after a long time when they become cumulative. Cumulative means when they feed themselves. This indirect effect of human activities may change the overall natural environmental system, and the chain effect sometimes degrade the environment to such an extent that this becomes suicidal for human being. Many factors behind the environmental problems arise. First is due to poverty, If we discuss about poverty, can find that poverty contributes equally to both population growth and environmental population. Poverty has been defined as the inability of individual or household to attain a minimal standard of living. The poor usually have low life expectancy, high infant mortality, and higher incidence of disablement and higher consumption of natural resources in the form of food, uh, folder and fuel. Unhygienic and insanitary conditions are another byproducts of poverty, and this poverty affecting human health. Poverty reduces people's capacity to use resources in a sustainable manner. It intensifies pressure on the environment. Sadly, I can say the impoverishment of the poor is accompanied by simultaneous and systematic erosion of the basic means of their sustenance, the environment. With its life supporting natural resources, land, water, and forest, it has now aptly been observed that we need no magnifying glasses to see how inextricably the poor and poverty are linked to the environment. Planned and unbridled description of forest affected the poor. Non-medic group and tribes in forest and who fulfill their fundamental needs from the forest and its products. Thus, if trees disappears, rains will be scarce, water resources will dry up, water table would go down, food, fodder and fuel will be not available, and lastly, destruction of vegetation means increased changes of drought and dry seasons. It may be slow, but defined restriction of human environment because poor rural areas totally depends upon forest and their products. In urban area, problems of slums, permanent dwelling, insanitary conditions, commotion, storage of food, increased demand of coal, firewood, and kerosene. Shelter and energy are intimately connected with poverty, leading to environmental degradation and human health problems. Therefore, the need of the time is some strategy, including legal strategy, to contain the problem of poverty and to have sustainable development and healthy environment. Here, if we talk about the other factor, that is deforestation. So, so we can say that forests are invaluable property of nation because they provide raw materials to modern industries, timber for building purposes, habitats for numerous types of animals, and microorganisms, good, friable, and nutrition rich soil having high content of organic matter offer protection to soils by binding the soils through the network of their roots, and by protecting the soil from direct impact of falling raindrops, they encourage and increase infiltration of rainwater and thus allow maximum recharge of groundwater resources, minimize surface runoff, and hence reduce the frequency, intensity, and dimension of floods. They help in increasing the precipitation. They are natural sink of carbon dioxide because they use carbon dioxide to prepare their food during the process of photosynthesis. And they provide firewood millions of people all over the world and food and shelter to innumerable human and animals. In fact, forests are lifeline of a nation because prosperity and welfare of the society directly depends on sound and healthy forest cover of a nation concerned. Forests are main component of the biotic components of the natural environment system, and the stability of the environment and ecological balance largely depends on the status of the forest of the region concerned. It is a matter of serious concern that the present recommended address economic man has forgotten the environmental and ecological significance of natural vegetation, mainly forest and grasslands, who has destroyed the forest so rapidly and alarmingly that the forest area at a global, regional, and local level have so markedly decreased, leading to several serious environment problems such as accelerated rate of erosion through rain splash, street wash, rill and gully erosion, increase in the frequency and dimension of flood, greater incidence of drought due to decrease in precipitation, etc., have plagued the modern human society. From ecological point of view, at least one third of the total geographical area of a country should be under rich forest cover. But this general rule of environmental significance has been floated in many of the countries. Deforestation has immediate adverse effect on soil and land because of exposure of ground surface to a high intensity rainfall. The major cause of deforestation at global and regional levels are conversion of forest land into agricultural land, shifting cultivation, transformation of forests into pastures, overgrazing, forest fires, lumbering, multi-purpose reverse projects, etc. Deforestation give birth to several problems encompassing environmental degradation through accelerated rate of oil erosion, increase in the sediment load of the rivers, siltation of reservoirs and rivers beds, increase in the frequency and dimension of floods and droughts, change in the pattern of distribution of precipitation, intensification, and you can say greenhouse effects, increase in the destructive force of the atmospheric storms, etc. as well as economic loss through damages of agriculture crops due to increased incidence of floods and droughts, decreases in agriculture production because of loss of fertile topsoil, decrease in the supply of raw material to the industries and building materials, etc. Thus, deforestation causes a chain of effective, uh, the chain of effects. You can say that the deforestation causes a chain of effects which adversely affect the natural environment. The third factor is agricultural development. Agricultural development means expansion of agricultural land, increase in agricultural productivity, and net agricultural production. It is due to development of modern scientific techniques, advanced technologies, increased production and use of chemical fertilizers, expansion in irrigational facilities, development of high yield varieties of seeds, etc. This has solved the problem of growing demand of food due to ever increasing world population on the one hand. It has also created or is creating hazards environmental problems of serious concern on the other hand. Thus, the problem economic and technological man is the crossroad of dangers in all directions. The agricultural development degrades the environment in a variety of ways. For example, we can say through the application of chemical fertilizer and pesticides and insecticides. Second, through the increase in irrigational facilities and amount of irrigation, by making change in biological communities, etc. Conversion of forest land into agricultural farm on slopy ground accelerate accelerate the rate of soil erosion. Increased agriculture production means increase in agricultural land at the cost of destruction of forest and consequent soil erosion, substantial increase in the productivity of land through the practice of intensive cultivation, increased use of machines and modern scientific techniques, application of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides, and herbicides, increase in the frequency and area of watering of agriculture fields, etc. All these processes and measures of increased agricultural development cause several serious environmental problems. It appears that the root cause of all these environmental problems arising out of agricultural development is the increase of human population and at alarming rate. So the foremost step to be taken is to stop population growth, because if population continues to grow, agriculture development has to be maintained. So we can say that the population growth also is one of the factor behind the environmental problem. So we can say that growth of human population at alarming rate is the most significant cause of lowering of environment, environmental quality and ecological balances. For example, industrial expansion, urban growth, agricultural development, increase in means of transport and communication, etc., are the result of population growth because the people must generate better facilities for their existence and better life. The development of scientific techniques and advanced technology has to be done in order to save the humanity from hunger and natural calamity and disaster. Thus, it is obvious that air pollution is the root cause of environmental degradation and ecological imbalances. The increase in population means more exploitation of natural resources, which means inauguration of new environmental problems. Okay, so that it means that inauguration of new environmental problem due to the uh, more exploitation of natural resources. The other is industrial development. Rapid industrial development has given economic prosperity to human society, has given new dimension to socio-economic structure, and has provided material comfort to the people of industrially developed countries. But it has also created many false environmental problems. In fact, the glittering effect of industrialization have affected the mind of the general public that industrialization is now being considered as the parameter of modernity and as a necessary elements of socio-economic development of a nation. Rapid rate of industrialization resulted into rapid rate of exploitation of natural resources and increased industrial output. Both the component of industrial development, that is exploitation of natural resources, and industrial production have created several lethal environmental problems and have caused large-scale environmental problems and ecological imbalances at global, regional, and local level in a variety of ways. Exploitation of natural resources in order to meet the industrial demand of a raw material has resulted exploitation of natural resources in order to meet the industrial demand of raw materials has resulted into, first we can say, the reduction of forest covers due to a reckless felling of trees. Second, excavation of land for mining purpose. Third, reduction is arable land due to the industrial expansion. Lowering of groundwater table due excessive withdrawal of groundwater, collapsing of ground surface due to withdrawal of mineral oil and groundwater, etc. Beside desired production, there are numerous undesired outputs from the factories, such as industrial wastes, polluted water, toxic gases, chemical precipitate, precipitates, ashes, and smoke, etc., which pollute air, water, land, soils, etc., and thus degrade the environment. The industrialized country have increased the concentration of pollutant emitted from the factories in the air, water, and land due to such an extent that they have degraded the environment to the critical limit and have brought the human society on the brink of its destruction. The adverse effects of industrialization may change the overall character of a natural system, and the chain effect sometimes becomes suicidal for human society. Majority of the impacts of industrializations are related to pollution and environmental degradation. The release of toxic element into environment through the application of chemical fertilizer, pesticides, insecticides, output of chemical industry, that is, changes the food chain and food webs and physical uh, chemical properties of soil. Similarly, the release of industrial waste into stagnant water of ponds, tanks, and lakes into rivers and seas contaminates water and causes several disease and death of organisms and thus disturb ecological balance of aquatic ecosystem. Increasing industrial expansion is responsible for the release of enormous quantity of pollutants through sewage. If you we can say that through sewage into the river and the lakes, and thus for contaminating the water. Release of several gases, smokes, ashes, and other aerosols from the chimneys of the factories adversely affect the environment in a number of ways. The burning of hydrocarbon fuels has increased the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and thus has changed the natural gases composition of the atmosphere. Release of toxic gases through inadvertent action of man causes environmental hazard which destroy all type of life from in the affected areas. If we remember the Bhopal gas tragedy, December 3, 1984, is an example of disastrous effect of modern industrialization. Acid rains, urban smoke, nuclear holocaust, etc. are the other form of environmental hazard uh, emanating from industrialization. So, next is urbanization. I think we should cover this point in the next lecture. Here, time is not permitting me. So, we will stop here and we will discuss urbanization, the last point, as well as measures taken to conserve and protect environment, in which we will learn legislative measure, various agencies and institutions to conserve and protect environment, economic measures, as well as social measures, environmental education, environmental impact assessment, environmental information system, that we will learn as the measure to conserve the or the to protect the environment.